This is Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network, and I am your host, Mark. This guest harkens back to the original concept of this podcast, and she has possibly the most unusual band setup I have ever heard of. Welcome Maura Pond of Luna Honey. And this band has really captured my attention. They've got this new take on the no-wave sound that spawned bands like Swans, Theoretical Girls, Rhys Chatham, and others. It's experimental music that's really accessible. Maura and I discover some similarities, like being from the Virginia, D.C. area and procrastination. She talks about getting a bit of a late start in the whole being in a band thing. She spent most of her 20s going to shows in the D.C. area instead of performing in shows. But that's not to say she wasn't creating. She was recording on her own, figuring, maybe even counting on no one ever hearing those songs. And no one will, because that hard drive is long dead. She had and still has some pretty serious performance anxiety, but playing drums while hanging with future bandmate and future ex-husband Levi Fleck really helped her learn how to handle it. They formed Luna Honey, and things have been complicated ever since. There's being in a band with your ex-husband Levi and current partner Ben Schur. There's delaying the sophomore album to write and record a completely new album with a completely different sound as a favor for an aunt who was dying. There's the collaborative album they did with Norman Westberg of Swans. And then there's the new album, Bound. It's their best and most diverse album to date. It's simultaneously experimental, haunting, spooky, and catchy. And Maura has some great stories to go with the music. So check them out wherever you get music and follow them at Luna Honey Music. Follow us at Performance ANX. Subscribe to the podcast, grab merch at performanceanx.threadless.com, and send coffee money at ko-fi.com/performanceanxiety. And let's get over some performance anxiety with Maura Pond of Luna Honey on Performance Anxiety on the Pantheon Podcast Network.
Okay, so I'll try. Okay, here we go. Hey, it's Maura Pond from Luna Honey on gonna have to do it again. Hey, it's Maura Pond from Luna Honey on the Performance Anxiety podcast, and I'm talking about our 6th album, Bound. Okay. Oh, awesome. Before we get started, can you hear that loud, obnoxious dog barking in the background?
No.
That's amazing, because she's quite loud. 1 second. I knew that, so we have this pretty rambunctious basset hound, and she's been sleeping all evening quietly. And I was like, I know what's going to happen is we're going to fire this up, and she barks at her food. And at exactly 8 o'clock, she ran down the stairs and started barking, right before this. So I'm going to just 1 second.
Sure.
Okay, maybe that's a little bit better.
It's really interesting to see you walk into your backgrounds, get really small, and then disappear.
I just switched rooms in the house where I have my office, and there's this very bright light above my head. So I look either like I've got a halo, or that part of my head is being eaten by some very well lit abyss. Great.
Awesome. Well, that puts us in the right frame of mind for the podcast. So
good segue.
All right. The new album is so I can't. I'm not. It's hard to describe it in one.
Yeah.
It sounds like nothing that I've heard in quite a long time, which is good.
Well, thank you.
So. And I want to find out how you guys developed this sound that you guys have, because it's to me, it sounds like there's a very heavy early Swans influence. And
that's true. Yeah.
But I want to find out how we got to that point. So before we get into the new album, was music a big factor in your life growing up? Was there a lot of it in the house? Did you have to take lessons, instruments, things like that?
Yeah. So it's interesting because I feel like, I hadn't really thought about childhood music stuff in a while. But, leading up to the album and stuff, people ask you these kind of things. And each time I keep remembering more stuff.
Oh, cool.
But no, I mean, my house wasn't overtly musical in the way that I think I've come to learn, like a lot of some other people's houses were, or like probably what people think of by that. My dad played guitar in church, so we had guitar around the house. And then my parents got my sister and me one of those like Casio keyboards. I think I was probably like 5 or 6 or something. I was like little, right? And they tried to give me lessons, but I just like would not. Like I would not do it. Like and I think that's actually where I started learning to write songs, because instead of because I had my headphones on, because it's a keyboard, so it's plugged in. Yeah. So I was supposed to like practice for like 30 minutes. And instead of doing my exercises I was supposed to be doing, I would just like mess around and like do anything to look like I was playing notes, but not anything I was supposed to be doing. Which I think is actually really a driving force in most of my creative pursuits that I was doing, is that I was either procrastinating from doing something else I was supposed to be doing, or
like me.
Avoiding something I felt like was harder.
You and I are very similar in that regard.
Oh, yeah?
I will freely admit that. Very big underachiever and procrastinator.
Yeah, I think like now that like I'm an adult and I've got some decades under my belt, I've like learned how to just like release the various tasks in order so that there's always something more unpleasant. Like, oh, I got to sit down and do this thing because I otherwise have to do my taxes. Right. So like,
3 years later, man, one of these days I got to do my taxes.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't think the IRS listens to this podcast, but
that's good. That is for the best.
Yeah, for me too. So what was the Casio keyboard was the first thing you learned how to play. Were you singing at that point too, or did that come later?
I think I was, because like that's definitely, I sang in the church choir for like years. So singing was definitely my primarily, like I think trying to think of a time that I didn't enjoy singing is like trying to think of a time like I didn't enjoy breathing, I
love that.
It was just another thing. And I kind of remember writing my first song, like sitting on the steps of like in the backyard, like without any instruments, kind of just like looking out at the yard and like coming up with a little thing. And I know it was before I could write. So like, I don't know, there's some kind of weird compulsive thing to do that. But like, I never thought of myself as a musician because I couldn't do that part where you sit down and you like rehearse, right? Like I just like couldn't bring myself to do that part. Like,
the practice part, I didn't like that.
Yeah, I mean, like somebody gives you a thing and is like, "Hey, here's some lessons," and you're like, "I don't like this. I don't want to be doing this." It does kind of make you think that that's not what you're supposed to be doing or whatever. And then, I think as a kid, I just liked a lot of stuff. Like I liked, drawing and generally kind of and writing and that kind of stuff. So
well, and the music lessons when you're a kid, they're boring anyway. There's like scales and learning songs you don't want to learn.
Oh yeah, but it was bad when I was older too. Like, so I got to college and it turned out like I only needed like one more math elective to graduate, and I could take music theory instead of like a math elective. And I was like, I'm definitely taking music theory instead of like calculus or whatever. Like that is a no-brainer. It turned out that I was really bad at music theory. My professor, God bless him if he's listening. Yeah, he passed me because he liked my compositions, and I technically did all the things I was supposed to do, but I labeled everything incorrectly. Like I got none of the I clearly absorbed like the sounds in the class, but I could not intellectualize it. I couldn't like put it on the paper.
Oh, wow.
But I did discover that I really liked composing in that class. Like we had like a music program where you could go in and write sheet music on the computer in MIDI. And cool. I would just like go to the computer lab and spend hours doing that. Like I loved it.
That's awesome.
but that still didn't really translate to any, because I was like, well, I would have failed, so I guess I'm not good at this either.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So where did you grow up?
Richmond, Virginia.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. Okay, I'm in Winchester right now, so.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, we got started in DC, like the band.
And before Luna Honey started, when did you, or maybe I should ask it this way, was Luna Honey the first that you joined, or were you out playing between college and Luna Honey?
Yeah, no, Luna Honey is my first band. I think I spent my 20s going to a lot of shows, and like, especially like, my friends were all like really active in the like DIY scene in DC. And I think at that point I was like secretly recording things in my room, like with like this fear that anybody might hear them ever. Oh. I had like a hard drive with like hundreds of little songs recorded that I lost.
No,
it's really good. They're gone forever. But they like, like it's, so that was like, I was like fermenting, I think, even though, the band, we didn't get started. I was in my 30s. So it's a little late, I think, to have some kind of realization that that's what you want to be doing yourself, but
hey, it happens when it happens.
Yeah.
So how did Luna Honey form?
Well, so Luna Honey is Levi Fleck, Benjamin Schur, and myself. And Levi and I had been playing in his basement. And I have to say, like, before that, I was like really I had a lot of like anxiety around, I would not play with people, basically. Like, I just wouldn't do it. And weirdly enough, they had like a drum set, so we would just like mess around down there. And it started that I was playing on, I can't play drums, but like, you can't do them quietly, right? You can't like quietly be bad at the drums. So like, I'm down there being horrible at the drums, right? Like, and I was like, you know what? I think I can be slightly better on a different instrument. Like, like I can actually play guitar better than I can play drums. And I don't know, Levi's just really supportive. So we both wanted to try to make an album, which at that point in time seemed like this sort of impossible, like, why don't we write a novel? Like, it just seemed like, well, we're messing around doing music. Like, why not like see if we can finish this? And then we ran into Ben, his band Brer at the time was opening for Arto Lindsay at the Black Cat, and he was like recording and producing people, and I just liked what he had to say. Like, other people had offered to try, but I liked what I don't know. I'm really strongly driven by like this gut feeling that I don't know how to explain, but I just was like, oh, this is my future bandmate, and he doesn't know it yet. And also, we're going to have a band together. Like,
oh, wow.
Yeah. So we all went. We were in DC, and we ended up going to go see Nick Cave in Philly together on like this road trip weekend that like we got tattoos together. Wow. It was a pretty silly weekend. I think we came out of it as like good friends, and we're like, well, we're stuck with each other.
Yeah. Why don't we form a band?
Yeah.
So how did you meet Levi in the first place?
Oh, well, Levi's my ex-husband.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a good way to meet somebody.
We were married at the beginning of this. And I feel like it's always fun to just like be like, oh, yeah, I'm in a band with my current partner and my ex-husband, and that's our band. And that's totally normal. It's nothing weird about that at all.
No, many bands have been on this podcast and that similar situation.
Oh yeah, but it's but yes, that's how we know each other.
Okay. Well, all right. That one threw me for a little bit of a loop.
Yep. We actually got the idea, like we came up with resolved to have the band like while we were on our honeymoon, because it was like, okay, let's sit down and like let's write like what are some life goals we want to make sure that we achieve together, like, you know, on this thing that we're on. And I don't know, Levi's delightful. I'm glad that the band is, that we're all still together in it, so that we have a reason to get together once a week and everything. And we're all like still, you know, it's we during the pandemic we all like moved to different places, and that was no good, and now we're all back in Philly. So
okay, well, it's incredibly impressive that you're able to do that.
Well, you know, I think I hear sometimes about the band drama that other people are having, and I'm like, you don't even know. Like, that is such small potatoes. You guys got to get over yourselves. Like, you know, like, because it, you know, being a band, it is like a different kind of relation. It's just you know, it's like dating a bunch of people at once. Like, you're just all in this like hyper intense, like weird friendship that's loaded with everybody's like artistic insecurities and, you know, and passions about what they believe music should be. And, you know, it's not a normal thing to be doing with yourself, ultimately, I feel like, which is, you know, I you know, I think just staying focused, like none of us ever were like, oh, well, we should stop the band. Like it was like, well, we got to put that first. And also, you know, I think still care about each other and stuff. So you can really get through anything as long as everybody's like kind of on the same page about priorities, I think.
That's amazing. Like I said, I mean, that's just impressive that you're able to go through that and keep the band together. It's just really wild.
Yeah, I think we're all stuck with each other at this point. It's like hard to imagine.
You know, it's weird. It's sad to hear about a divorce, but it's awesome to hear that you guys are still friends.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, your new partner is part of the band as well, and everybody gets along. It's amazing.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're very mature.
Yes, Will.
So is there something behind the band name, Luna Honey?
Well, that came from the honeymoon. Like, I don't usually I think I was going to maybe I should just try to come up with some intellectual reason for the name, but that's where it came from. It came from the fact that we came up with it on our honeymoon. And it was kind of this idea of staying focused on, you know, that new feeling when you're excited about something, like a honeymoon period. Yeah. Like kind of trying to live in that space and not take things for granted. Because I think, you know, coming to this kind of late, you know, I feel like I had a lot of time that was focused on other stuff, you know, and it wasn't like it wasn't wasting time, you know, like I focused on activism stuff and just a bunch of other things. But like your time will slip away, like if you don't stay focused on carving out time for your priorities, and it speeds up the older you get. And I think people don't prep you for I think older people try to prep you for that before it's coming, and then a decade has gone by and you're like, oh, it's real.
Yeah. My dad wasn't full of shit.
Yeah.
Where the hell did the 90s go?
Yeah.
So tell me about it. I've got 3 kids in college right now. It's just,
oh wow, yeah.
And I'm trying to tell them the same thing, and they're like, oh yeah, sure, Dad, sure.
Yeah.
Like, all right, you just wait. It hit me, it'll hit you.
Yeah, everybody's got to learn it for themselves, you know.
It's what you have to learn through experience, no matter how many times people tell you.
Yeah, it's funny though. I think it's kind of a blessing and a curse waiting until a little later. I think that there are things at this point. So I'm turning 40 next month, and I am stubborn. Somebody, I know what I want, and I know what I'm not going to do, and I know how I'm going to do things, and I'm not close. I mean, the bandmates might disagree. I'm not close-minded, but it is a sense of kind of knowing yourself that I think when you're younger, you know, you got to get to that point, you know, and it's good stubbornness that I think is actually pretty helpful for, you know, doing any kind of artistic thing.
Yes, exactly. I would agree. Being successful at it, at least.
Yeah.
The first album, Peace Will Grind You Down, how long did it take between the idea of the band and the writing and recording of the first album?
Oh, I guess actually, okay. So during the first album, we hadn't actually, I misspoke slightly. We hadn't actually decided we were going to be a band yet, but we had decided we were going to record an album together.
Oh, okay.
So I think we recorded that as a studio project. Ben was still under the idea that he was not in the band, but I had already decided that he was in the band, to the point that we went and got press pictures taken. And I was like, Ben, get in these pictures. And he was like, why am I going to be in these pictures? It's like, just get in a few of them. Just like, so we have pictures together.
You are stubborn and a little bit devious.
Well, yeah, that's probably accurate. But also, like sometimes things, I mean, that was just, I felt like an inevitability, right? We had such fun recording that album together. I mean, we did it at my house in Anacostia, DC, and we're like sloshing around in the bathtub, like making weird sounds to use in the background, or like, I think there's like a part where like we wanted like this crunchy kind of sounds. I like went out in the backyard and got these black walnuts and put it in a vice, and it was just like a lot of fun experimentation that I think happened on that one. Partly because we didn't have like a giant hoard of instruments at the house, and partly because I don't know, we just like hive mind and clicked on stuff. And so after that was recorded, I wanted to press it to vinyl and just to have it, because that's what I wanted. I think we all wanted to do that. And then Ben was like, well, you can't just like press this to vinyl and then have it sit in the closet. It's like,
right.
Dang, you're right. I guess I have to have a band, which I thought was terrifying, because like I really was not. I have horrible stage fright, so I.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, I was. I liked the name of your podcast here, so I was like, oh yes, like I.
Well, it's funny because I get asked a lot about the name, and that was supposed to be a through line between every episode, was to see if my guests had it, how you overcame it, and but that never really happened. I just kept forgetting to ask about it, and so.
Oh yeah.
But I already have the artwork, and I already had the RSS feed and all, so I'm like, I guess I'm stuck.
That's good.
I'll work it if I can, but
Yeah. Well, yes, I do have pretty bad performance anxiety. So
do you still suffer from that?
Oh yeah. It doesn't always kick in quite as often, but it's like random. It's like not related to. It's like we could be playing, like I got really nervous at like a small house show that we were doing like the other week, and I was like, what is going on that this is what's happening right now? But the thing is that like it's not, once you get used to it, like I thought at the beginning of this, I thought repetition was going to make it go away, but once you get used to it, you more just get used to living in the discomfort of having it, which is a really useful skill. And turns out, I think like at this point, I'm not trying to make it go away because the performance is actually better with it, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's not fun for me, but I think it's objectively better. Like the days that the nights like I am somehow not nervous and I'm like totally chill going on, which is rare. I just don't have the energy that I do when I'm terrified.
I understand that completely.
Yeah.
So I liked what you were saying about finding different sources of sounds for your first album. So because I wanted to see if musique concrète was an influence in the music, because you guys throughout all your albums, there's some unique sounds going on in as far as percussion particularly, but throughout all the albums, there is something musique concrète about it, where you're finding found sounds or creating music out of something that's not necessarily musical.
Yeah, I think Ben definitely really strongly comes from that as a background and an interest. And then I just think it's fun. I don't know, like there's a lot more sounds out there other than just the normal configuration of like kind of a rock band. And I just have a hard time. Actually, on Bound, we've gone into the past several albums with the intention to keep it simple and keep it what like we could play live. And then you start doing it and you're like, nah, that's not what the song is. It's just not what the song is. So there's always a little bit of frustration that like there's stuff that we do in the studio that just like doesn't translate to live, or like could translate to live if we could have like 20 members and lug around like a bunch of giant stuff. But like, I don't know, I drive a Mini Cooper, so that's probably like it's things gotta fit in there.
If you guys could be like I'm gonna pronounce this so bad, Einstürzende Neubauten.
Oh yeah. Also big fans of them, but yeah, not fitting too many metal things in the van, I think.
No jet engines.
I really like tiny things. If I could have, like, I got the tiniest, loudest amp I could find. Like, I don't know. I like silly things. Like there's I think so the song Bound, that was originally written on a kazoo and a ukulele, which I don't think is, and they're both still in there, the kazoo and the ukulele, but I don't think that it sounds like probably a song that's written on a kazoo and a ukulele.
No, it does not. When we get to that, I got a few more questions, but you guys have a track listing that when you hit my favorite songs, you've got like 5 in a row that I just adore. They're just amazing.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you. Thank you.
Before we get to that, so, all right, Peace Will Grind You Down. My favorite on that is Intention. I love that song.
I hear the music that's pulling life from the baby's first breath.
They are growing in the distance with 1,000 hungry eyes. They are frantic in their playtime. They are eager for the prize. I am seeking in the schoolyards, playing house inside each home.
Did you guys, and I know you said it was more of a studio project than anything else. When did you decide that, we'll play this out live? And how difficult was it to do that with breaking walnuts for percussion?
Well, when we started to translate Peace Will Grind You Down live, we had a Barry sax player in the band at the time.
Right.
And so she kind of joined at the end of that. She wasn't on the first album. She's on parts of Ballast, which is really the second. We recorded that second, but it just took forever to get out. Or I guess, we recorded that second. So there were just like various delays and stuff for that getting out. So she's on part of that. But I do think that, and the 4 of us had a lot of chemistry in the room. There was this very like low endy, like it became a different thing, which is we also recorded like a live version of some of those songs called Peace Lives, which I don't include in the album count, although I guess it's like 6 studio albums and then some other stuff. But that one, we wanted to kind of document that a little bit and like what those songs turned into. And that was fairly immediate, I think. Like a couple of months.
Wow.
Maybe. Yeah. Like I feel like we started, I don't have my timeline in front of me, but yeah, I think it was like, it was like a couple months and then we were up and running.
So you went from, let's just create an album for ourselves to let's play this. We're playing this live in a matter of months.
Yeah. Wow. Well, and we were rehearsed, right? Like, I think one thing is everybody in the band from the start is like pretty disciplined. So like, we like to have fun and stuff, but like we come in to practice and it's time to practice, right? So it's like, run the set. There's not a lot of like joking around. It's it's like professional, so no yelling at anybody. Like it's going to work, right? And you punch the clock. You get I like to have the sets really rehearsed so we can do the transitions and stuff too. Because personally, I just don't like a lot of chit chat in between songs. Like when you watch people, and I think people start talking when they get nervous. They don't really like. Some people are really good at working a crowd. I'm not good at working a crowd. I shouldn't be left to my own devices to do that. I'm just gonna start. I'm going to start like blathering about something. I'm not one of those people that people want to see work a crowd. Right. So like
it works for Chris Robinson.
Yeah. Like some people are just like, some people are hilarious and their crowd work is like the best part of the thing. I am not. So like,
all right. That's fair. That's fair. You got to know your strengths and your weaknesses.
Yeah, there's a good chance that if there's dead space in between the song, that I'm just going to stare at the audience. Like, it's like, like it's equally uncomfortable for me to talk as not talk. So like it's up in the air about how it's going to go.
I kind of love that though. I would pay to go to a show and watch you just stare at the audience in between. My favorite thing in the world is if I'm telling a joke and it bombs.
Oh, wow.
That is my favorite thing because then everybody's uncomfortable and it makes me laugh. I love it. So
yeah, it's kind of that. It's like it's a little bit twisted feeling. You're like, well, everybody's held in like the moment here.
Yeah, exactly.
And then there's nothing that's going to happen now in this moment. Like
nothing good. Anyway.
Nothing good.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. So you're saying that Ballast was recorded after Peace Will Grind You Down, but it was released after Branches? Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So Branches was recorded basically in a week, and it it happened because my aunt, who I was not like I hadn't super close with, I hadn't talked to her in a long time. She called my family on Christmas Eve and said that she only had a couple months to live. Oh. And then she asked to talk to me, and then asked me if I would write her some music to help her accept her transition. My aunt, very sort of Pacific Northwest shaman lady.
Wow.
I don't know how to describe her briefly, but that probably, she, and I was like, are you sure? Like, do you know what the band sounds like? Cause like, it's not, I can't write a happy song. Like it's probably not going to be comforting. Like I tried, but and she said, just go out on the tiny branches and see, and see.
Wow.
And so that got recorded really quickly and really frantically because, it wasn't even originally, she said that we could release it after she passed. And I think she passed in March or something. So that was just, that was recorded over like New Year's and just really rapidly put together almost in like this like dreamlike manic week-long state.
I can only imagine. Yeah. Yeah. But that explains why it sounds drastically different from everything else. It's so much more ambient. Yeah. Incorporate any of that into live shows?
I think we're trying to figure out how to do more of it. We've been performing the first track off of Aftermath, which is the collaboration we did with Norman Westberg. And so we've been playing that one, I think, and I think sort of no, like in part just because the songs are much longer. I mean, we're already playing really long songs. Yeah. And then, each of the albums tends to have like louder parts and quieter parts. And I just gravitate towards doing the loud stuff live. I think like inhabiting the space of like, how to say this. I think being like a woman and kind of loud, but not necessarily angry. Like there's kind of like a powerful thing, like like a little hat that's just kind of like feels important to put on in a way that like putting on some of the quieter ones for me personally at this period doesn't feel quite as much like the gut feel of like what we're really drawn to do live, but would like to do it at some point.
I think it's, hey, maybe that's what you play between songs.
Yeah. And I've been, I do like that stuff. So it's probably just figuring out partly how to execute it live and then how to warn people that that's what we're doing. Cause we have got, it's interesting booking and setting up shows because you never know what somebody has listened to.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, well, it's fun showing up at one where you're like, oh, you listen to not all of the albums, but one of the quieter albums, and you're about to be upset you asked us to come. Like,
Okay, so that kind of explains things because it was just a really big contrast between Peace and Ballast. So it was just, I had to know about that. That was just so interesting that you guys went that way. But it didn't really totally, or maybe didn't is the wrong word, shouldn't have surprised me because I can hear some of the influences and the way that some of the people who've influenced you have gone has also kind of been that route. Maybe not for the same reasons, but maybe. Like Swans has gone into some ambient stuff. Michael Girard for sure. Norman Westberg's definitely gone into a lot of the ambient music. So it probably shouldn't have surprised me that you guys went that route.
Yeah, and I think it's not like a super conscious decision either. I mean, I think for Branches, that was a conscious decision.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, oh yeah, let's pull out like the loud amp. I mean, right. But the things I think like the like approaching each of the albums is very subconscious. Like, like it's not like, oh, we're gonna like let's do some bangers. It's more just like I hear the songs that have come out.
What I like about Peace and then Ballast and Parables is there is just like a spookiness to all of those albums. Like Cleanliness is
oh yeah,
I love, that's my favorite off of Ballast. Definitely has this like creepy vibe to it. Red and Black, and Red and Black, it was really kind of hit me that your voice reminds me of like a combination of some of my favorite singers. Like I can hear some Grace Slick, Jarboe, and Beth Thompson from Medicine. I definitely hear all of those in your voice, and I think that's one of the reasons why I really enjoy the band as much as I do.
Inside me is a vacancy that is limitless. I am limitless in this darkness astray. In this darkness astray.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
And Parables follows that same vein. Like, I guess the best way, it kind of reminds me of like this 80s horror movie vein, which I'm not big into horror movies, but the 80s, for some reason, there's something special about the 80s. I don't know what it was, but
I think there is like an uncanny valley mood that we were kind of channeling on some, like Parables definitely has a lot of like more absurdist songs in there. And then Ballast, like that was all like, that's like a very DC album, like a lot of those songs, I just had this like really bad feeling that something really terrible was coming.
Oh, wow.
And I felt like I needed to like get out of DC. Like I like there was just like
I
a
get that
number.
feeling every time I go into DC.
And I loved living in DC, right? Like, but like I just got this like I don't know, like it was a whole year where I was just like, I got to get out of here. Then the pandemic hit. I was like, oh, this is the bad thing, I guess.
Yeah, you know what? That's prescient right there. I don't
know.
So that was, I guess, somewhere we're in the Branches Ballast time frame of the band. How did that affect you guys? Because is that the time when everybody kind of went into different cities, or?
Well, no, like Levi and I had already. At that point, we'd split up, and he'd moved and gotten a house in Philadelphia.
Okay.
And Ben and I had started dating, but then Ben moved to Philadelphia and moved in with Levi, which I don't think we have time to go into, but that happened.
Wow.
So then I was in DC by myself, and then the pandemic hit, and then Ben came down to stay with me so that I would not be losing my mind in my house by myself.
That's good.
Yeah. So that, and I think, and then we kind of hit the dark period for the band, like many people. We did record Birth off of Parables. I think that was the last thing. I'm trying to remember. I think that was when we went up to like get stuff from Levi's house. We ended up recording like right at the beginning of all of that.
Wow.
So that kind of came out of that, like, oh, is this going to be bad? And then I started like stockpiling an obscene amount of like shelf stable thing. I went crazy bunker mode and like hold up like a year's worth of food. Like I was like, I'm ready. Like,
oh wow, man, you weren't the person that bought up all the hand sanitizer off of Amazon and tried to resell it, were you?
No, I didn't need hand sanitizer because I was not leaving the house. Like that was I mean, I already hate grocery shopping, so it was really any excuse to just like be like, okay, now it's possibly not safe to go. Then I'm fulfilling all my fantasies of just off of shelf stable tofu. Like.
So, man, okay, I don't even know where to go at this point. Let me pull up my timeline here. So Parables comes out after the pandemic.
Yes.
Did you guys pick up playing? I mean, do you guys play out a lot, or do you tour regionally, or what's the live situation like for the band?
Yeah, well, we started playing more. We were playing and kind of amping up before the pandemic, and then it, we had gone and played some shows down in Mexico City with our, and had gone to Europe for like just like I think like 2 shows. We tried to book a European tour, and it turns out that's very difficult to DIY that yourself if you don't know what you're doing. But I was like, well, we still had fun. We still had a good time, and so we did get some travel in before that. And, I think are looking forward to doing, it feels really good to like kind of have things be a bit more normal now. But I think I just, it's a lot of work to plan that kind of stuff. And, left to my own devices, I'd rather make more albums than like work on some of that. But like, that's not to say that I think now it's like, okay, it's time to do that again. So yeah, we've been playing out more.
Oh, good. So, all right. So after Parables, you do what I should have seen coming, but for some reason still took me by surprise when I pulled up your discography. You did a collaboration with Norman Westberg. How did you meet Norman, and how did that project get started?
Well, that's also kind of a funny story. So that happened during we started working on that in 2021, I guess. So Ben and I moved from DC down to Richmond, Virginia. And then unfortunately, like my mom, who lived there, passed like 3 months after we moved.
I'm so sorry.
So I was kind of like dealing with like that whole thing. And I was in like I was feeling pretty down about stuff, and I started listening to a lot of Norman's stuff. I had seen him play in DC and really loved it. I'd picked up one of his CDs, and there was just something in it that I was like, listening to on repeat, and it was helping. So I guess I bought a bunch of stuff on Bandcamp, I think, and he just dropped a note and then was like, "Oh, it'd be fun to work together sometime." And
Oh, wow.
I freaked out, I think. I mean, it's funny. It's funny because like I'm a really big fan, but then when somebody pops in like that, you're like, okay, I gotta not be weird. Like, don't be weird. Don't be weird, me. And then like on top of that, there's like, okay, don't be weird. And this person's nice and I like them as a person. So like extra don't be weird. Like, like it's a just kind of a cognitive dissonance when you try to put your like, 12-year-old fan brain like in the corner and tell it to shut up and not like cause any problems.
I understand that completely.
Especially then when you have to mix it with the fact that like, I'm I don't know how with your own like stubborn musical tendencies or whatever. So it was really, we worked remotely on that. And it was, I think the first half are things that we kind of sent to him. The second half, side B, is like a live performance he sent to us that we added things on top of. So,
oh, cool.
Yeah, it was really, and we didn't go into that as like, oh, let's make an album, but it just like turned out that way. I think I tend to like organize songs as they're kind of coming out around some kind of framework. And yeah, so that album lyrically it's definitely about grief and loss, and not only personal grief and loss, but also just the world, like kind of emerging from the chaos we were in. So that's how that came to be. Sort of a weird, I don't know how that happened, but I'm very grateful for it.
I think it's a great album. I love Norman's been on the podcast, and
yeah, he's a sweetheart. He's
amazing. He's so great. Harbor is definitely my favorite track on that album. I love the blasts of feedback, the mechanical percussion, whatever that is. I have no idea, but it's definitely music concrete influenced. I love your subdued vocals on that. They're beautiful. The whole song is just chilling in a good way. It's definitely my favorite on that.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you.
And so your sixth album in 7 years is about to come out. And by the time when this podcast comes out, it'll probably be out. Bound. It seems to have a little bit of every phase of the band in it, which I always love albums like that when like a band's entire past kind of comes together in one album and makes its own unique sound. And to me, that's what Bound does for you guys.
Great.
It's also impressive that you've put out 6 albums in 7 years. Most bands can't do that.
It feels really slow to me. Like
I'm telling you, there's so many bands that can't do 6 albums completely. And especially for someone who didn't go into this as, oh yeah, I'm going to be a musician.
Yeah.
That to me, that's amazing.
It's pretty funny the way it's gone by really quickly. And I think that's part of why it feels slow, maybe. Like I wish there were 7 albums in 7 years. It bothers me that there's a gap.
Come out with 2.
In that gap, it was like we went to Mexico. Like we were doing things in that gap, right? But I'm still like, there's a gap. I got to put 2 out next year so everything evens out. Like,
you guys have anything on the cutting room floor? Because you can always put out a B-sides album.
Well, we do. Not a lot of things end up on the cutting room floor, and if they do, they're never coming out because they're dead.
Oh. I'll tell you what, I kind of want to hear the kazoo ukulele demo of Bound.
Oh yeah, it exists somewhere. It's pretty funny.
I am dying to hear that. Like I said earlier, I think that's my favorite song on the album. But it's hard to say. You've got this wild ass song called Barbie Cake, which to me sounds like early Swans, like filth cop era Swans meets Blood on the Saddle, like kind of like a no wave meets cowpunk. It's it's so cool. It's such a unique song, especially on that.
I was really trying to write a fun song.
She's there, half there. She knows. If only she had the legs to do so.
Speed it up just a little bit to see what happens. And like, what if I've got this little pedal that like is a oh gosh, what's the name of it? Anyway, it's like a little like drum machine pedal that is actually really difficult to exactly control what it's doing, like because it's a little bit broken. So like I'll tap in it, and I kind of like that it's a little bit broken because sometimes it spits you back something and you're like, that isn't what I asked for, but I love it. And so that song definitely came out of one of those. Or no, wait. Yeah. That's one of those.
I love stuff like that. When I hear that, oh, this was an accident, but then it worked out perfectly.
Yeah.
I love that stuff. So Bound is that you got that bass line. It's snarling, and you got that unrelenting beat that just. I think that's what really reminds me of Swans so much. Like early era Swans is that. God, I guess maybe even later era Swans, because it's the same beat and it's just unrelenting. It just doesn't stop. And it can go one of two ways, and you guys have controlled it, much like Swans, to make it work for you. Because you kind of do the same thing in, I'm assuming it's Lead. Okay.
Yep.
I see Lead. I'm like, lead.
It's Lead. And that's intentional for the word. So
okay, good. Because I'm listening to lyrics, trying to get a. Can I hear the word? But you do it also in that song, but in a softer, less brutal way. And it's right after Bound, so it transitions so nicely. I love it. I love that transition from the hard brutalness of Bound to doing the same thing, but in a softer way.
This group of songs was harder to figure out the transitions, and I think there's some really intentional ones in there, and there really was only like one order, I think. I mean, we played with a couple of different ones. I mean, one was just like, where does one put vacuum cleaner? Like, because that song is just gonna be there wherever you've put it, right? So
I love the beginning of that song specifically. That is wild. I love the intro to that. So then there's Snarge. What is Snarge?
So Snarge is the name for birds that have gotten it sucked into a jet engine, and it's the bird slurry that comes out the other side. Maybe the grossest word I've ever heard.
Now I'm like Snarge. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What is that? And now it's disgusting.
I was like, debating not having that be the name, but I was like, oh, somebody else. I'm just like so gleeful at the thought of somebody, at least one person out there Googling what it is and then being like, oh,
Somebody's going to look that up and hopefully not see an image, maybe just get a definition. Lemons, I like, because Lemons sounds like it could be a song by Medicine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's specifically where you sound so much like Beth Thompson in that song. And Gravity, that is so spooky. It reminds me, I don't know what's going on in that song, but it sounds like this. I don't know if you've heard, it's this weird Russian radio station called The Buzzer. Okay, it's UVB 76, and you can actually stream it live. It's just this weird radio station that it just plays. It doesn't play music. It just plays.
I'm so excited.
It sounds, okay, so it says it broadcasts a short, monotonous buzz tone.
Oh, wow. I'm definitely checking that out. That sounds great.
Oh, it's amazing. It says it repeats at a rate of approximately 25 tones per minute, 24 hours a day. But sometimes there'll be a voice transmission in the middle of it. And it's just, you don't know when it's coming. It could be days. It could be weeks, nothing. And there's so many theories about what this bizarre, ghostly radio station is. They thought it could be like a dead man switch. So if it ever gets interrupted, it launches nuclear weapons. It's insane.
I'm so intrigued.
Yeah, it's called The Buzzer. It's also UVB 76. And you can stream it live. I guess live. I think you can. You used to be able to. I think it's still active.
All right. Well, I'm going to check it out. That sounds great.
Yeah. Oh, it's creepy. It's really wild. But that's what Gravity makes me think of.
I know I'm not like you used to know. I know something is different.
Well, it's a tape loop. The background sounds is a tape loop. So it is like you're caught in this weird, like, what is this loop? Because that's what it is.
To me, it sounds like it could be the soundtrack to like a space horror movie.
Yeah.
It's awesome. Is there a writing process for the band? I mean, is there like a main songwriter, or does everybody contribute? Do you each bring in your own parts and make them work together?
It kind of varies. Like, I definitely write all the lyrics and all the melodies and like the vocal parts, right? I also tend to write songs on bass, even though I wouldn't necessarily say it. Like, I'm not trying to play with bass live, but I just think I gravitate towards that as an instrument. And Levi and Ben are both bassists. We have a lot of like bass-minded people in the band. So, but we either end up kind of with these fragments of experimentation. So Gravity's a good example. That's a tape loop that Ben did that sometimes you just hear something and you're like, oh, I can write to that. Like, I pretty much know whether I can write to something or not, even if I don't know what the thing is. And I don't know how to explain. I like it to be really minimal. Like, I can't do I don't like it to be, if everything is finished, like if, some people like to have all the instruments, everything recorded before they start. I like there to be like the bare minimum stuff in there, like preferably it could be just the beat, like some kind of cyclical thing that's happening, or it could be the beat and the bass. I really don't tend to like it if the guitar is in there, because then it's starting to feel too done. And like, and I like to like kind of put it on and like drive around in the car with it and like see what kind of mood comes out of it. Right.
Oh, wow.
So it is like a collaborative, everybody in the band, it could be, we trade off instruments. World is Ending on Parables. That's one that like Levi did the guitar parts, and the song was kind of written around that. And then Vacuum Cleaner, Levi did the beat, and then Ben and Levi did the like kind of all the horrible sounds that are happening in that. And then Then I was like, oh yes, like opera kind of singing on top of this. That's what I hear. But it took a really long time to like actually nail that one down. I think because I kept thinking that was a bad idea and was like, nah, this is just what the song is. It's just happening now. So yeah, I think it's definitely. I am the stubborn person at the end of the day that will kind of prune things or kill things, I think, which can be frustrating, I'm sure. But yeah, it's definitely, everybody, I mean, that's part of the fun, right? Like you want to have a band, not a solo project.
Right.
But people can bring ideas in and things like that. And, Ben is super talented and really good at, he's like constantly recording stuff in his own projects. So they're just like things around that sometimes you're like, ooh, this thing, that would be great. Like, and then I tend to kind of like hibernate and then do like I haven't touched any musical instrument for like 2 months. And then I'm going to like pop out like 3 songs. So,
Nice. Wow.
Yeah.
Are there plans to take this album out on the road? Are you planning to stay locally? Or are you going to try to go outside of the Philly area?
We've been trying to play like Philly and New York, I think a bunch. Like New York's so close. And unfortunately, we got day jobs. So it's kind of like, well, I would love to take it wider out on the road. And maybe once it's out and all of this round of hard work is done, then maybe I can think about doing that one. We definitely have people who I think we have cities we'd like to come to at this point, but we don't have anything outside of, we've mostly been ping ponging, I think, between, we were hoping to play more up in New York in the next year. I mean, partly just because we have like a lot of pals up there and it's fun going up to like play with your pals, know?
I think you guys need to do a homecoming show in DC.
Yeah. Well, DC, I think, I just don't know where. We did one at Rhizome a couple months ago. Okay. I don't know where shows are happening there anymore.
Oh man, I'm shooting. I do a lot of concert photography.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, we'll.
Yeah, there's like DC9, Songbird, Black Cat still does all kinds of stuff.
Okay. Yeah, and I guess we played DC9 and it's been a minute. Yeah. So we'll plan to come back down.
Yeah.
Down your way.
I'll bring my camera. I'll take some shots. I'll just give them to you. So where can people find the album and how can they follow you on social media to find out when you are coming to DC?
Sure. We are on Spotify and on Bandcamp, and I think most of the places people would want to listen to it. Our Instagram is probably where we're most actively posting stuff, which if you look at it, you'll be like, are you sure about that? But when we're doing things, we do post it on there. So that's probably the best way. I just like, it's exhausting. I'm not really interested in making content. Like I want people to be able to find out about stuff, right? But like, the algorithms are just killer, man. It's like, if you don't want to make a bunch of videos, which I absolutely do not, it is like frustrating trying to figure out like, okay, like I want to be respectful of people's time, make it like, easy to get in there. But man, yeah.
That's why I don't do TikTok. Cause I don't want to do videos.
Yeah. I feel like TikTok is yelling at me. Like, I don't like being on there. Like it's like too much. It's too much talking.
Yeah. Exactly. And I sit here and freaking talk to people for an hour or more each time I do one of these. And I don't want to talk on a video.
Well, this is like long form. I think that you're doing this is being able to like listen to a long form conversation, personally as a podcast listener, I feel like is like keeping a couple more of my brain cells alive. So thank you.
My pleasure. And thank you for joining me in it. So what is the Instagram handle for Luna Honey?
Luna Honey Music, right? I have to, this is really good that I have to go check. That's a great sign. Yeah, it's Luna Honey Music.
It happens so often. Do not worry about it. I get so many people. I should know this. Well, this has been awesome. I love the album. It's just, it feels like the return of no wave. I mean, I've become, over the past few years, a big fan of Swans. And this reminds me of early Swans, which is just such a unique sound. And
That's so cool to hear. I mean, like, it's kind of funny because, like, I mean, we're big fans, but like, it's clearly like subconsciously in there, right? Not like a, like, and
oh yeah.
I still don't know how to tell people what the band sounds like because it's a weird thing to try to answer.
Oh yeah.
So that sounds kind of pretentious to say that, but I genuinely don't know how to give an accurate
No,
summary.
I totally understand it because it's the sound of the band is very unique. I don't hear a whole lot of bands that sound like you guys. And that's a good thing because I love how you sound. So it's one of those albums where it catches my attention and I stop myself to listen. Whatever. I just kind of stop what I'm doing and I'm because of songs like Gravity and Bound and Lead. For me personally, it connects with something and it makes me I just want to listen to hear the little hidden things in it. It's one of those albums that just grabs me and makes me listen.
Well, thank you. That really means a lot. Sometimes these things can feel like you're just like flinging stuff out into the abyss. So thank you for taking the time to listen and to talk with me and stuff.
It's my pleasure. And I understand the flinging things out there.
Yeah.
I got 400 and something episodes, and I'm not sure how many people have ever listened to any of them. So,
hey, I've listened to, I haven't listened to all 400. That is a lot. That's a lot to get through.
yeah, it is. But check out the one with Norman. You might.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Got a chance to that one, but that was a fun one. Norman's a great guy, but. Thank you for spending so much time with me and talking about the music because it's great. And I'm hoping we can get a lot more people listening to it and get you down to DC because I would love to hear how this translates live.
Yeah. We'll hit you up when we come down your way. We're definitely we have a bunch of friends down there too. So like DC is our other city that it's East Coast stuff. So we do tend to go up and down the East Coast.
Oh, that's awesome. And I'll bring my camera. And in fact, when you go on Instagram, you can check out my personal account has a whole lot of my live music stuff. So
I think I saw some of your pictures on the Park Life.
Yes,
Park Life DC.
Yeah, I just shot Drive By Truckers. That one just went up. Let's see. I shot Swans, so that was a.
Oh wow!
Yeah, that's cool. Dana Schechter's been on the podcast once or twice, and we've kind of.
Oh wow! I'm also a big fan of her project.
Oh, Insect Art.
Yeah.
We met up after the show. We kind of hung out. We kind of stay in touch a little bit after the show. You should check that one out because it was for not the latest Insect Art. It was for the previous one. Mm-hmm. And I had no idea that, doing the research, I found out she's from the Bay Area, San Francisco. I had no idea she knew Cliff Burton from Metallica.
Oh, wow.
And hung out with him and learn some bass from Cliff Burton.
Oh, what a wild story.
Oh, it's crazy. That's why I love doing this podcast because I find out weird shit like that.